I am a revered teacher, a private tutor, known as the James Bond of private tutors. Yeah, you ought to be ashamed, Dan. You ought to be ashamed. That is the beginning. That's how I'm considered one of the best in the world. Connecting adolescents, igniting academic passions, and inspiring students to achieve higher test scores. He is the James Bond of private tutors. Well, look at you, Mr. Bond. Here we meet again. Yeah. All right. By the way, Dan Lerman, I have to say something. I read your article 1 o'clock in the morning at Free Press. Big fan of Barry Weiss. God bless her and her new to be $100 million, whatever she's going to get. I loved this article because I love the way it started out and where it took me with just, I don't know how many words it took for you to put all this together, but you explored so many aspects of curiosity, the human desire to know things, and then what are the things that are in our way to stop us from really achieving higher education, through structured high school and college and things like that. And that's why I wanted to have you on, and I'm so grateful that you're here. The name of the article was The War on Knowledge. Who's waging this war, Dan?
John, first of all, I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for reaching out. This is what life's all about, these conversations. So thank you.
You're
it
welcome.
Seems like you've got a fun team. I love you guys.
Good.
Who's waging the war? That's a great question. I wonder if it's people who are afraid of inequity and measurement, because if education was truly about knowledge and quantifiable in certain ways, then it by definition creates inequity. And I wonder if people who are consciously or unconsciously afraid of that have a no knowledge agenda. But
there's no, life itself is not fair, and there's no equity in life, right? I mean, even twins have different IQ. The firstborn normally is smarter, right? So there's no way you can create equity.
I agree entirely. Down to our biology, there's a limp scarcity of resources. It's just the way of the universe. So I agree with what you just said, with no further modification. Okay,
so what it seems to me is there's the view of constricted and unconstricted. The view constricted, if you read Thomas Sowell, he talks about that certain people view us as fallen, broken species. Our nature needs to be controlled with institutions. And then you have unconstricted, which is sort of a Marxist view that man himself is perfectly fine and could do really well on his own. It would love one another as they love their own parents and everybody else. But it's the systems and the institutions that are the problem. So it seems like in modern education today, Dan, you have this unconstricted view that yes, there's inequities, and what we'll do is we'll just sort of smooth out the edges. We won't really grade anybody because we don't really want to hurt anybody's feelings, and then therefore everyone will be equally uneducated.
Yeah, there's a great short story by Kurt Vonnegut, one of my favorites of all time, called Harrison Bergeron. And the first line of that story, the year was 2048, and everybody was finally equal. And in the 4 or 5 page story, he kind of zooms out to reveal this world where the best and the brightest of humanity had to go around wearing heavy bags of sand and wearing clown noses. And I wonder if a version of that is happening to us now, with a very strong anti-test movement, the grade inflation. Did you know that in many places GPAs are now out of 5.0 and not 4.0? It's all kind of feeding the same trend that I think you're describing.
Did you know Michael Jordan was cut his first year of high school basketball? So if Michael Jordan had made the team because they didn't want to hurt his feelings, Michael Jordan would not have improved. But right after he got cut, he went home, cried for a couple of days or something, and then decided, no, while they're playing in games, while they are practicing, I'm going to practice. And Michael Jordan at that point decided, I'm going to be better than anybody else on that team. But if he had made the team, Dan, Michael Jordan would not be who Michael Jordan is, right?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And did you know I'm a huge basketball fan?
Yeah, I know that because you're also like, what, 6'6" or
something.
something. I see you standing next to your wife. You make her look like a midget. Hey, so what do we do if the war on education is because people feel sorry for other people and we're grade inflating and we don't want anybody to know that they might not get these things? How does somebody win this battle back?
One thing, I don't have a definitive answer. I have a 3-year-old
Okay, goodbye,
daughter.
Dan. See you later. Goodbye. If you
All
don't
right,
have a
that's
definitive
enough.
answer. Nice to see you. Bye. There goes James Bond. No, go ahead.
I should just not. It's a waste of like 6 words. I know our time is limited, so I'm sorry. I
No, go ahead.
retract.
Go ahead.
But, I have a 3-year-old daughter, second baby on the way. We're very excited and thinking about this. And I run this group of the top online tutors in the world. It's called the League of Exceptional Tutors. And one of the trends I'm seeing is a lot of people who are kind of free thinkers and noticing this trend. A lot of people are choosing to homeschool. And I don't know that that's the answer for us. I don't know if it's the answer for anyone, but I'm just noticing a lot more. When I was growing up, I'm 39 years old. When I was growing up, it was kind of a fringe thing. And now they're homeschooling conferences. They're big companies that kind of provide there's that school everyone's talking about, Alpha School out of Austin, where the kids spend 2 hours a day with AI learning and then spend the rest of the time on there. So I think rethinking what our time in schools really is spent doing is clearly a step in the right direction.
So if we, like Socrates didn't like the fact that things were written down on a piece of paper. He actually didn't like he didn't want words written down. He thought people would spend time reading as opposed to talking. We've come a long way, and now we've gone all the way around, and maybe people don't even read anymore. So we divide the marketplace into those that decide, well, there's nothing available for me in the market, so I'm going to homeschool, right? But then there's others that seems college as, well, I go in, I'll just take all these classes. I won't have to worry about a C or a D because they don't give those anymore. I'll hire Dan. He'll help my kid get into some college, and then I'll just use that, pedigree to get some job at some corporation somewhere. So you, Dan Lerman, are part of the problem.
Yeah, it's the evil James Bond. We need to rethink.
Yes,
my
yes.
moniker. Yeah, I sure understand that perspective. I sure understand it. I don't know that I have a good retort other than, in the free market, if I'm not doing it at a high level, someone else is. And perhaps the whole game is rotten. I hear your point.
Yeah. So then, and you see it, and, you got one kid, you got another baby coming, you got to feed these kids, and you have this skill set. And you're like, look, if you want to hire me to teach your kid to score well on these SATs, I can show them. Can you, without us paying you anything, what's the one tip that you give people to be like, okay, this is how, by the way, you should know, first time I took the SATs, so I'm 63, I scored combined 630, and then I cheated in my SATs later and scored 1220. So
nice.
Thank you. And then the Aptitude Testing Center in Princeton, New Jersey, sent me a nice little letter explaining in less than 2 paragraphs, as a matter of fact, that they would be sending this letter to every college that I applied to. So I didn't have much of a career, but
wow.
Yeah. So what's the tip that you give people when these people come in? Is it really that hard to beat these tests, Dan?
Yeah, they almost all standardized tests test 3 things. They test reading, grammar, and math. And the central one, the number one kind of barrier to crushing these tests is people are not elite readers. People are not elite readers. So basically, my entire tutoring career hinges on the idea that I can teach people to read at elite levels. And if you take a look at an SAT, they're available free on the internet. You can just Google SAT, and you're given little paragraphs of really high-level text. There's Shakespeare, there's poetry from the 1600s, there's scientific studies, and especially in today's society where attention spans are going down, people, I'm reading less than I used to because my attention is pulled in a lot of different directions. I think people are just not high-level readers. So the one tip, if you've got kids and you want them to go down this path and do really well at these tests, get them reading not just kind of fun Harry Potter stuff, stuff that's going to expand your mind with complex ideas, complex vocabulary, and that is kind of the grease that makes the wheels move.
I sent you an article that I discovered this morning, and I took, some great glee in the fact that you wrote back to Joe saying, "Oh, a friend of mine, I think at Harvard or whatever, sent me the exact same article." And it was basically trying to say that, yes, we're smarter if you look at the IQ tests in America. We're not getting dumber, but we're not reading as much as we were before. And perhaps the Flynn effect, which tested IQ, might actually be in reverse, and we might be getting dumber in a way.
Yeah, I consider myself in this life, John, a glass half full person.
Okay.
And I think a lot about how in many ways this is the best time ever to be alive. Steven Pinker wrote this book called Enlightenment Now, which by every measurable statistic, this is the best time ever to be alive. And one of the things I've thought about is this Flynn effect. And again, against our perceptions, it seems as if people are getting smarter by each generation. We're getting smarter and smarter, and that idea is called the Flynn effect, and it's been well established. The psychologist named James Flynn spent his entire career researching it. When I wrote the article in the Free Press, I mentioned that's like a seminal thought. It's like one way I alleviate a lot of the anxieties I have about this world. People are getting smarter. It doesn't seem like it. People are getting smarter. You very wisely wrote back, and another colleague of mine also wrote back, that this effect is actually in reverse. And I had heard ramblings of it, and I've read about it recently, and it's kind of disappointing because, yeah, the data's out, and by the same metric that we were getting smarter, we are now getting less smart. And what are the metrics of that? Well, the standard IQ test is called the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. It measures reading ability. It measures your ability to do math. It measures facts like who is the Chancellor of Germany? All of these questions are on IQ tests. And as a whole, we're getting worse at them. I don't know. Some people might say it doesn't matter. I think it's a reflection of the fact that we're spending our free time doing nonsense, myself included, just like on social media, rather than reading books, expanding our minds, having mind-expanding conversations.
And also the test of intelligence is the ability to adapt and to think of ways that you prior to the conflict or the problem that you have is a way to find a solution to that problem. So it's abstract thinking as well that needs to go into a basic intelligence, understanding intelligence. It's not just knowing, what two countries have an X in their name.
You like that?
I do like that. Or who is the Chancellor of Germany. It's not just memorizing facts, but the ability to have the facts as a basis of knowledge and then use the basis of knowledge to say, well, here's another problem. This is something similar. Why don't I just go on ChatGPT to get the answer? And by going to that, you don't begin to form new, neural pathways that stimulate the brain to grow the brain.
Nailed it, John. Yeah. Oh, man. I have goosebumps. You nailed it. That's exactly right. And I think in any domain, intelligence is grounded in facts. Even for us to be able to have this conversation, John, we need to know the English language and know how to conjugate verbs, and those are objective facts. So this idea that facts are not important is kind of deeply offensive to me.
Yeah. But you've noticed in school, the kids don't know how to read. They don't know how to do math. Facts are not as important because they get in the way of, let's celebrate somebody's creativity. So, right. Again, the question goes back to you, Dan, the James Bond of SAT and tutors, that how does somebody realize this is a problem, and then how does one address that problem and get us back to a basic respect for the rules of spelling? I before E except after C.
Nice one. Yeah. About that one. That's a really good one.
Thank you. By the way, Dan, I have stumped you on every question I've asked, so I don't know what the hell you're doing over there.
I'm a thoughtful person. I look up. And yeah, yeah, I know. These are really good questions, John. And the reason I'm taking a moment to answer is I don't want to come off as preaching that I've got the answer. I don't. So I
Yes.
really feel the need to qualify and try and give an answer that might be useful. I think one answer that might be useful is to get an objective measure of your actual reading level. And to get into, like, are you actually able to read and digest ideas? And if not, there are ways you can improve that rather than just ignore it and say reading isn't important anymore. I believe reading is a fundamental it's just an important part of how our brains evolved and how we communicate in our society. And I think people are getting worse at that.